All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We are formerly known as the Spirit Council. We're the Simsbury Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council, and we are hosting tonight's event and called Housing Basics in Simsbury, and we're so glad you all came. The work that we are doing over the next year is we received a grant, a $10,000 grant from the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving, and we're leading a one-year community engagement, listening, and educational series to help shape a shared vision of inclusive housing for Simsbury. In your seats, you'll see a program. You'll also see an evaluation. If you can please fill that out before you go tonight, you can leave it on the table. I know not everyone will be able to stay the whole time, so if you just fill out as much as you can for now, and please include your email address, we can make sure that we stay in communication with you throughout this year's process. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about what we plan to do this year. We're hosting 3 educational series. This is the first one. Our next one will be options and consideration session. We hope to hold that in the fall. And in this session, the next session, it will be designed to explain affordable housing options and considerations in Simsbury. The presenters will explain when housing is considered affordable, where affordable housing is located in Simsbury, and hopefully we'll have more information about the details as we get closer to the date. And then our last session, we're hoping to design a program that will be about inclusive housing, and it'll explain what inclusive housing is and provide more information about initiatives, policies, and other things that really impact adding more inclusive housing in Simsbury. So thanks so much. I am very excited to talk about this panel we have tonight. We have 3 panelists. First, tonight you'll hear from George McGregor, who's our new director of Simsbury Planning and Community Development. And we're so happy to have him here tonight. We also have Rich Correa. Correa, am I saying that right?
Yeah, it's close.
He's the executive VP of R.M. Bradley Commercial Real Estate. And we also have Ed L, I like to say, because I always mess his last name up. Sorry, Ed. Retired director of Simsbury Housing Authority. We're excited. There will be an opportunity to ask questions. Please ask questions. Please make comments. The more we hear from you, the richer our experience will be. So thank you again. And I just realized I didn't introduce myself. I'm Shari Chester Anderson, chair of the Housing Subcommittee of the Simsbury DEI Council. Thank you so much. So George, you are on.
Thanks, Sherry. George McGregor, your new planning director. I have been here 5 weeks, so I'm an expert on the town of Simsbury. But hearing Sherry kind of walk you through what those future events are going to be about and those topics, it kind of makes me feel good, because it's exactly what I prepared. Essentially, a framework to kind of lay the groundwork of how we approach residential and housing policy in the community. I'm going to walk you through a little bit of our regulatory structure. So that might be a little boring, but I'll do my best to keep it interesting. And talk about who the players are, your boards and commissions, and then talk a little bit about process. Any technical questions? I do have Laura Barkowski here from our office. So anything that, if you want to know the setback in the R15 district, don't ask me yet. I still look it up. But I think this should be helpful to you tonight. But so that's what I'm going to talk about. Framework, walk you through some definitions. We're all going to be talking about probably some of the same things, and we'll use some of the same language, try to get everybody on the same page with that. How we zone for residential uses in the community, talk a little bit about the affordable housing plan that was just adopted last year, and then, as I said, process. All right, so let's talk about policy. How do we generate policy? How do we frame policy in the community? The most important way we do it is through your plan of conservation and development. I'm going to call that the POCD the rest of the night because it's a lot to come out of my mouth. Plan of conservation and development. So this is our policy framework. This is the document that sets our vision in order to help us guide development, guide our environmental preservation and protection policies, helps us generate the kinds of community facilities we need in reaction to or in response to that growth that we're supporting or that the types of development that we're supporting. And it really ends with a future land use plan where our elected boards and commissions really rely on to make kind of reasonable and rational decisions. So as I said, the POCD lays this really aspirational framework for everybody. So when it comes to residential development and housing, these are probably what I see is really the most important statements that come out of your POCD. Essentially, as I read it, and I think everybody would agree, the two things we're really trying to do in the community is we want to protect our existing residential neighborhoods. Particularly, that means we want to protect it from incompatible development. We've got great neighborhoods here. I mean, I just live just in Bloomfield, so I'm not unfamiliar with your community. I eat here, I shop here, I go out to dinner here, so I'm certainly familiar. So we want to protect our residential neighborhoods. We also want to seek ways to meet the diverse housing pressures that we have in the community. We want to meet the needs of current residents and future residents. And when we say that, when we say meet the needs, we really mean we want to provide a broad range of housing choices for everyone of different socioeconomic backgrounds, age backgrounds, all those kinds of things. That really is the underlying tenet that comes out of your POCD. And that's kind of broad language. And then we do a little bit of providing kind of specific support statements. If you're familiar with the POCD, we've got a section that's called the Sense of Place chapter, and it talks a little bit about the special places, Simsbury Center and Tarrytown, the places that you would recognize as a neighborhood or an area. And each of those areas we ascribe kind of different approaches. Because we shouldn't treat everything the same, but Simsbury Center, for instance, is the place where we consider the focal point of our community, and that's where we want to encourage the greatest density and the greatest mixing of uses. So it's a place we really do support a broad range of both commercial and service and retail and residential type uses. In other parts of the community, like Tarrytown, we kind of have a traditional mill village, and then there's language that says we really want to promote development that's appropriate to that kind of environment. And of course, we've seen our greatest growth pressures in the Hot Meadow Corridor, particularly on the southern portion. So here's just some definitions I'll roll through. They are in alphabetical order. When we talk about accessory dwelling units, I know the community has spent some time in the last year talking a little bit about an approach to accessory dwelling units. Those are separate self-contained living units on a single-family piece of property. So an apartment above the detached garage, an apartment in the basement. Affordable housing. I'm going to talk about affordable housing in two ways tonight, and I'm really going to defer to Ed more than anything. But this is affordable housing with a capital A, and we've got a special slide that'll come up. But that is housing that meets the specific definition of our state code as it comes out at 830G, and I have a specific definition that we can work on. I want to differentiate form-based code for you. We've got a zoning ordinance and we've got two form-based codes. So we really have three models of different approaches to how we regulate land. But the form-based code, I just wanted to make sure I differentiated it by saying the form-based code is intended to dictate form rather necessarily than a separation of uses. Remember, your traditional zoning ordinance is set planners call it kind of a Euclidean approach. It's separation of uses into distinct zones. Form-based codes are a little bit different. They're a little bit more permissive in terms of uses. They encourage a mixing of uses, but they're really concerned about the form and where the building is and the size of the building and the structure of the building. Mixed use is the kind of thing we support certainly in several areas in the community, but that's a mixed-use development. We've got multiple land uses, hopefully planned as a unified whole. Multifamily, the distinction for multifamily is any type of residential structure above a single-family unit. So a duplex we consider multifamily, 2, 4, and then on to apartments. Single family. And then workforce housing, I wanted to just distinguish that from the affordable housing, the small a, but workforce housing is a term that we use to express housing that is directed towards kind of our middle income folks, the folks that you think of as teachers and firefighters and service workers and retail workers. I always think this is a very good slide. It just helps people remind folks, what are the types of development, what are the types of housing are we actually talking about? We're so familiar with single-family detached. Obviously in Simsbury, I think you've got close to 78% of your residential units are in are single-family, many on large lot. But when you go across the board, there's lots of different kinds of housing units that can fit into lots of different areas. The affordable housing plan is probably the second piece of your policy development. It's really a companion document to your plan of conservation and development. The definition of affordable housing, again, this is from the state code, this is the capital A, and it's housing that's available to households making less than the area median income and costing less than 30% of a household income. Typically, we say that if you're paying more than 30% of your income and housing costs, your house burdened, you're burdened by those housing costs. And again, the plan really emphasizes one primary goal, and that is to increase the number of affordable units in the community. And again, that was adopted in 2021. I'm not asking you to read the matrix, but just wanted to also point out that just like your POCD, the Affordable Housing Plan has a clear implementation schedule, which is, identify items that are achievable and that we would work on, once we're done with that policy document. I simply call that out for you. Just one of the items: amend the subdivision regulations and zoning regulations to require a percentage of units in new projects. So that was one of the implementation items. Zoning regulations. As I said, zoning regulations are intended to implement your policy document, your POCD. They're designed to regulate the use of land and how individual property owners and businesses can use their land. More often than not, we try to do it in order to protect and preserve orderly development. We want to protect property values, certainly as our neighborhoods, as I said earlier, and preserve health, safety, and welfare, those kinds of things. And again, what they do is they provide guidance and regulation on what uses are allowed on any particular piece of property, whether you're in a residential zone or a commercial zone, something like that. Also talks about the types of buildings that are permitted on any piece of property and also where those structures can be located. As I said, we've got 3 different approaches to zoning in our community. Of course, the first is our town-wide Simsbury zoning regulations. As I said, that's a more traditional approach to zoning. What I show you tonight here is your residential zones. Just kind of get a sense. We've got 6, 8 residential zones, and the numbers that you see go along with the minimum lot size that would be permitted for really a single-family home. These are all single-family residential districts. So what we call our high density would be on a single-family house on a 15,000 square foot lot, so a quarter acre. Your Simsbury Center zone and the Hartford Simsbury site are form-based codes. And they are designed to implement, again, that physical form with a little bit more permissiveness towards the diversity of uses. Really, they're asking us to have more mixed use in those kinds of developments. So both commercial and service and residential components. But again, the design is the most important when we look at those codes. You have your boards and commissions play a significant role in the development and the review process. I'll walk you through kind of what each one is responsible for. Planning Commission, particularly for residential development, they are the primary review agency and final approval agency, or commission, excuse me, for subdivision review. So you've got a parent tract and somebody wants to develop X number of residential lots on it. So that application goes to the Planning Commission for review and approval. They also provide advisory recommendations to the Zoning Commission on zone changes and text changes, as well as some select zoning district applications, like the PAD zone. Zoning Commission is your primary review and approval body for site plans, special exception applications, and zone and text changes. And in the world of residential, a site plan is required for anything over 1 unit per acre. So a duplex project, multifamily project, those are site plan projects, and they would go to the Zoning Commission. We've got some advisory groups. The Design Review Board provides architecture, landscaping, and other design review recommendations to both your Zoning Commission and your Planning Commission. Look at signs and lighting and those kinds of things. Inland Wetlands, I didn't want to leave them out. Inland Wetlands and Conservation Commission is the approval body if a subdivision, a residential development, or a site plan for apartments proposed activity within 100 feet of a watercourse or a wetland. And they are the final review body. In fact, the developers would have to go to that body first, get a permit from them, and then proceed on through the zoning process at the Planning Commission or the Zoning Commission. The review process can be different for each and every application. I mean, a lot of these applications can be quite complicated, but by and large, we recommend to developers and applicants and business owners and property owners, if they're involved in the process, to meet with staff first in a preliminary format where it could be non-binding. We can give them some ideas and make some recommendations before they submit their full application. Once we get the full application, we would send that out to other referral agents and generate staff comments. And when I say referral agents, I mean we would send an application to the police department or the town engineer or the Department of Public Works so they can comment back on their kind of categorical expertise as we go through the process. And we would get those comments to the applicant, and hopefully the applicant would respond to those. Many of those applications have public hearings, and ultimately that the project review and decision either by the Zoning Commission or the Planning Commission. My last slide, I don't know whether Rich or others we're just going to talk about data. Just a couple of data points, just to remind us what we're actually talking about in terms of what exists today in Simsbury. Plus or minus 9,500, over 9,500 residential units. 77 of them are single family. 23% are multi, 78% owner occupied, 18 renter occupied. I'm happy to answer any questions. It can be, absolutely. It must be brothers. Yeah, sure. Maybe can I come back in?
So when a developer comes in, goes through that process of review and through all the different boards, and then the project is underway, and for one reason or another, they do not fulfill all of the promises they made when they were presenting that project. For instance, they were going to have retail space in a project, but then all of a sudden they decided, well, no, that's not really economical now. We're going to make it all residential with no commercial base at all, or, they agree to a certain amount of, amenities for a project, and then they decide, well, no, we're not going to put that swimming pool in. Is there any type of remedy for that?
Yeah, I think so. I would answer it this way. Hopefully, that when we were taking the application through the process and getting the approval by the zoning commission, that we would have clear, articulated conditions which would set forth a trigger for when the commercial would have to be in by, or when the clubhouse would need to be provided, or the open space or the playground. Hopefully, my intention certainly would be to draft clear guidelines for that. Now, if the applicant or developer, wasn't fulfilling that, we certainly have a regulatory enforcement approach to that. And ultimately, if they didn't want to do it all, we would recommend they come back in and make that request to the zoning commission or whoever the approval body was for that change.
Would the same thing apply if they had agreed to put in affordable units and then changed their minds?
It depends if there was a clear, articulated condition that was a part of the approval.
I'm going to follow up on your question. If a developer comes in and they choose not to do part of what the written contract is, wouldn't that be a breach of contract, and wouldn't they be penalized in some way for that? If you have a developer who has a plan and they renege on a part of it, like retail space, wouldn't that be a breach of contract from a legal standpoint? And wouldn't
So we would call it a violation of the approval conditions.
How do you correct that, or how do you remedy that?
Hypothetically, we would have several tools at our disposal. One is, perhaps we'd have a discussion with the developer about halting any additional permits on the site to have that discussion. I'd like to find out the reason first and figure maybe there's a market condition that the developer's faced with. Again, if it was something that really was an issue for the developer, I would strongly recommend they go back through the process and plead their case to the approval body, which would be the zoning commission or the planning commission. But I mean, if it was a case they just were refusing to build the playground,
No.
Well, then we have enforcement mechanisms. We could write them a notice of violation, do a cease and desist. So we have some.
No, I mean financial penalties. That's what I'm looking for, because if you're reneging on something that you were expecting, how do you So it's not a financial thing, because in order for developers to achieve what we expect of them as taxpayers, you want them to be held accountable. You just come in here and say you're going to do something, you don't do it. And if there's no financial penalty, then there's no incentive for them to do what they were originally said they were going to do.
Sure, I understand that.
That's the point that I'm trying to make. There has to be some type of safety net for the community.
Sure.
Leslie Hammond with Hammond Realty. Thank you so much for doing this, and you all have a beautiful town. I've always appreciated this town, especially your trees. You have more trees, I think, than the whole state of Connecticut. So I'm here because, the Fair Share Bill did not get passed in the state, and I'm really concerned about what every town is doing to do their part for affordable housing. So I look forward to hearing more about that. But I'm also curious, as you're talking about development, do you have much land that could be developed? Because I know there was a big controversy about a barn that I think decided to stay a barn, I believe. But I didn't know if there was other land, and I know you've protected farms, which is awesome, so I'd love to hear more what land you do have available.
You mean available for development?
Yeah.
Oh, I would love to defer to our eminent Mr. Correa on that.
You want me to start now, or do you want me to, in part of my speech, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, in my mind, I'm going to take you from Route 44 all the way up Meadow Street, up into Tarryville, and out to West Simsbury.
Okay.
And we'll talk about what is available there for the development to occur.
Great.
And do we
Okay.
have opportunities?
Okay. Thank you for affordable housing. Thank you.
Yep.
I'm just curious,
the town certainly has affordable units in a number of developments. I have not gone yet to pull all of those approvals and see what the categories are. There are certainly affordables with a big A at least 3 developments that I'm aware of.
There's no congregation of affordable housing together. It should, the best way to do it is to integrate it in with other, as part of regular development.
I don't know that you have seen a developer do a specific workforce commitment by deed restriction or anything like that.
Did 100 years ago in Simsbury. A lot of those houses that were built
Well, right.
100 years ago.
Thank you. We're going to move on to Rich.
Want me to come up there?
Yeah.
Okay. For those of you that think that I brought the sandwich because I'm hungry, it sort of is not. It's because I'm hungry later, but not right now. But the reality of it. First, I'll apologize to Brian DeVoe that owns Fitzgerald's because when I met with Nicole and Cheryl originally, I told them that the financing for affordable housing is like a Jersey Mike sandwich. And they give you lots of options. So I was going to open up the sandwich and go through all the options, and then I found that they put it in writing. So I think that might be a better way for me to do it. The first thing oh, sure. So when I showed up at Jersey Mike's and I said, well, I need to bring a sandwich, I'm giving a talk tonight, they're like, yeah, right. So in the development world, you need a site. Well, what type of site do you want? So at Jersey Mike's, they said, well, do you want white bread, wheat bread, rosemary palm, or gluten-free? I'm like, oh, I have a choice to make. Now I have to figure out what choice I want to make. And then, what sandwich do you want? I'm like, oh, I don't know. So I looked at all the sandwiches. I said, well, I'll do the original Italian. Well, coming on that is the provolone, the ham, the prosciutto, the capicola, the salami, the pepperoni. And then they go and they add lettuce and tomato and onions. Oh, you want the Jersey Mike's original? And they add the oil and they add the salt and pepper. And okay, so housing that's affordable. Well, is it affordable housing? Is it housing that's affordable? Is it attainable and sustainable housing? Or is it financially accessible housing? And the words paint different pictures in different people's minds. So one of the things that I've always tried to overcome as a commercial real estate person, I've only been in Simsbury this month here, 32 years. So I'm new, But when I look at okay, how do we get there, and how does this all work? Well, what else are we competing with? So I like to look at what is the rest of the world doing. So, for example, up in the Boston area, in the town of Westboro, Amazon bought a piece of property up there. They went in and they spent $700,000 an acre for 65 acres. And how does a housing developer trying to create a product that's affordable compete with that type of acreage cost? And then you go into Boston, and in the Seaport District, there's a beautiful project happening over in the Seaport District. And the developer's WS Development. They own the shops at Farmington Valley over in Canton. And the cost for their 12-acre tract of land was $30 million an acre. So it was a $360 million acquisition. So they're putting up towers. They have Amazon coming in as a tenant, taking up 500,000 square feet. And they said, well, we're going to do some housing. So they cleared up a spot and they made some green space. And they went, we're going to do housing. It's a bait and switch, is what the neighbors said immediately. Now, how do you get so many units affordable if you're paying $30 million an acre for land? So out of 500 units, they've committed 166 residential units to be an affordable program. So it just, where are we and what are we doing? So I said, so in my presentation, George, thank you for doing my entire presentation. Because now I can talk about what we have to do. So we have to create images for the town. The comment that was made about downtown Simsbury being beautiful, that is first and foremost what gets developers interested in this community. I'm dealing with them they're coming in from out of state, and I'm always so happy when, it's a beautiful day. I'll meet them at the coffee spot. They go, "Whoa, why don't we meet at Starbucks?" I said, "No, Starbucks you can do anywhere." So we go to the coffee spot. And so I meet them there, and they see the life and the activity and the smiling faces and the people walking on the bike trail and creating, and then they get this feeling. And so then we go for a tour of the town. In the residential world, you close them by bringing them to Simsbury Farms. What a beautiful place, and that's how you close them. In my world of retail and development, I have to bring them to sites that are available, but also they're looking for what are the amenities that are here. So as we go up and down the street, we have Fitzgerald's downtown as a grocery store. Great anchor. What can we get near Fitzgerald's? Big Y ended up going to the North Village of Simsbury. That because Big Y is there, we have the skating center, and next door to the skating center, there's 75 acres of land. If you go buy it, that's my sign. Okay, so if you have ideas for it, call me. You ask about if a developer is breaking their promise while bringing retail along. So when I look at things, you go to a greenfield site like that, we have a grocery store. So the grocery store right away gives me the opportunity to bring more not grocery store, but other type of commercial business right along the front. For example, we have a brewery that would love to be up there, but the 75 acres has to be bought as a whole, and then we can cut it up for various people. I was with a developer today from downstate, and they said to me, "We love that land next to Big Y." And I said, "Well, okay, that's good. So, if you want to buy a piece, we need a major developer to buy the entire piece, because the people who own it's Culbro. They're only selling the whole parcel, but whoever buys it will then cut it up. And we have somebody that's getting closer on the pricing. Early on in the process, we had a developer out of Boston that came down, and he told me point blank, if that grocery store wasn't here, I would not be down here looking at this site, because that grocery store is the amenity that I need to do it. So, so I'm looking at, okay, well, where else can we go? Well, out on Route 44, we have a site and George is going to get to see all this firsthand next week, and Maria. We're going on a tour, and we're going to go look at every single site. First off, I am not an expert in housing that's affordable, attainable housing. I'm not an expert. What I'm really good at is taking this person, this person, this person, putting them all together. In Avon, where Creck used to be, there's a big old office building, and everybody looks at it, oh, it's an office building. What can you do with that? Well, they're tearing down office buildings. Windsor just passed an ordinance to stop some of their office buildings from being torn down. But there's 550,000 square feet of projected office space that's going to be raised. And what do they want to put in its place? Buildings that house like Amazon or Chewy or things like that. That's where the hot market is today for that. Meanwhile, if you go to Windsor, I'm the guy playing with the sports across the street. We have 11 women's softball fields. We have a soccer dome going up. We have a couple hotels coming. We have a small brewery coming in. We have a few restaurants coming in. And we're moving people around, and we're sliding. You look at a tenant, and that tenant today might not be the best tenant long term, so we slide them. So anyway, so that happens over in Windsor. So in 44, we have all this land. There's 26 acres for one piece and 22 for another. Some of it's in Canton, some of it's in Simsbury. Some of you may have read 2 years ago. Was it 2? Yeah, 2 years ago, we had a prospect to do an EV showroom, which made Stephen and Mark Mitchell exceptionally happy because it's direct competition to the cars. So they're not in favor of that. But little did we know there was a lightning rod to the state of Connecticut, and the Automobile Dealers Association didn't want to see electric vehicle showroom on that site. But we wasted 18 months trying to get that approval. We should have been done in one night. That came about because of other.
Don't blame my lobby for that.
Oh, I'll challenge you on that. But okay, but that's okay. They didn't want to see the rock blown up. They're worried about the Swift chemical spill. There's a lot of things, but there's engineering that goes along with it. But there were a lot of mistakes made with that plan and that project. So that would be a new plan coming in. The majority of the rock's going to stay. Nobody's tearing down the rock. We have Cumberland Farms coming in to do a small 2-acre pad to do a Cumberland Farms on Route 44. Why are you doing another gas station on Route 44? Because there's 36,000 cars a day passing the site. And they look at it and they go, this is a great place for us to be. But behind there, we have another 48 acres left over. What's that going to be? Well, if George helps and if all of you help, I hope that we can turn some of that into attainable housing. So there's a price point that I think the pricing of the apartments in Simsbury is going crazy. I've heard stories of rents going up $500 a month for people that are currently in their place. My son up in Massachusetts, he said, well, my granddaughter is leaving daycare, but his rent went up $400 a month. And he's a great payer, so that disturbs me. So I have a real personal program as to I want to be behind to make sure that we get the right product for this town. So as we come down into Simsbury, I said I'm not an expert in in attainable housing. I'm not an expert in medical marijuana yet. I put them in there. Well, I'm not an expert in a gas station. I've done gas station deals. I'm not an expert in a lot of things. I am an expert, though, in the retail world. so that I am. But I found that the communication we have with our developers and for them to make a promise, it's more than just a promise. They need a program and a plan as to how this will work out. And sometimes you have to take the zoning regulations and they're a great body to give us what we can and can't do, but we have to make it more flexible. And if we're stuck to, well, there's 20 units per acre and you can't do any more than that, but economically it doesn't work. I mean, so if there's a nice piece of land and you need to put up 60 units, or not on an acre, but say 60 units over 2 acres, so 30 an acre, to make the numbers work and make the housing more affordable. That's a way to look at it. So we come down the street, we come along Hot Meadow, and when you see houses on Hot Meadow Street, I've always looked at those as incrementally, what can we do? Can a house stay in the front and we have development occur in the back? It's along the bike trail, it connects people, nothing big, maybe it's a 20-unit building, maybe it's a 30-unit building, but it's hidden, so it doesn't take away from the character of what we want to keep in Simsbury. We get to downtown Simsbury. What can we do in downtown Simsbury? The charrette we did in 2009 says that we can do all types of modern-looking buildings along Iron Horse Boulevard. So, we have the parking lot. Well, is somebody going to buy the parking lot from the state? The answer is maybe. But you need the right person with the right personality and the right plan. Let's buy the parking lot. Let's put up the right type of housing. I think that what Chris Nelson is doing behind Simsbury Town Shops, that's perfect. It is so perfect that I got a phone call the other day from a developer, not a developer, somebody that is bringing in a lot of money from what they call a 1031 exchange. And he said to me, Rich, I'm really impressed with downtown Simsbury. Is there a building there I can buy? And I said, how much of an appetite do you have? Because yes, a lot of times I will sell something that's not for sale. It's what is available, what do we know about this, and how can we put something together? We go up our street, we go up into the North Village of Simsbury. Is there opportunity there? Yes, there is. Is it right along the street? No. We have 75 acres. We can tuck things into the back. Let's try for there. Up in Tarryville, George will have a field day with this. In Tarryville, you don't have zoning regulations that work. You have, there are properties up there that are available, and they could be taken down, they could be repositioned, but you need to change the zoning in order to make it work. And Tarryville is such a beautiful little eclectic community. So we can do things there. We go out to West Simsbury. We're limited in West Simsbury because we only have that little shopping center. Am I out of time? Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. But I mean, the majority of Simsbury will not fit the housing component. Now, is the affordability for people buying a home, renting a home, and we need a complete feeder system. So we have to be able to accommodate our young people, our old people, and everybody in between, and whatever income level it is, we as a community need to be able to go out and have that housing product for them. We have a great school system. My two boys went through here, and it's just a great community. So I need to sell the community. And again, Simsbury is such a beautiful, beautiful town. It sells itself, but with George's help, Maria's help, and especially Laura over in the corner over there. If you don't know, she's up and coming, and she's been here the longest now. So we need to work with her. And what type of questions do we have? Yes.
I always hear about how hard it is for developers to make money on affordable housing, but yet there's this huge development going up opposite Whole Foods.
Yes.
And so how did that model work, and why are they able to do it and other developers are having difficulty figuring out a way of making a dime?
Great question. That's a project I'm involved in. And what we did is we brought in Dara from Beacon Communities out of Boston. They specialize in housing that's affordable. Okay.
Just explain what
Yeah.
it is that we
Yeah. So what they do is they own properties throughout New England, throughout the East Coast actually. They did the mill over in Windsor, and they look at a building and they price it out, and then what are the opportunities of making it better? So they looked at it as an 8-30G, but 8-30G sometimes ends up in litigation with a lot of times. So they hired an attorney, Tim Hollister, and they modified the 8-30G regulation, and they are developing, they're taking the old Creek School, and then they're going to put up a new building next to it. And it's a combination of what's the price point for the property, the price point for the land, and how much will it cost them to put it all together. Now, the financing for that's where my Jersey Mike's comes in. It's federal money, it's state money, it's local money, it's grant money, it's, there's just, all these bundles. Now, we kept telling Avon, we need to have the approval by October in order for them to get started. So Avon said, well, it doesn't matter if it takes us till December. So they approved it in December. But by approving in December, they missed the 2022 funding sources. So now it's going to be 2023 before they get their funding from all the various bundles. They used to call it lasagna financing. I said, nobody knows how to make a lasagna. Do a Jersey Mike's. You know how to make a sandwich. So because of all the bundling of the different financial products, that's what makes it work. Without that, they could not put it together, especially with the cost of materials today.
And a development like that, does it provide a stable tax base for the town?
Absolutely. Yep. There's a stable tax base. They're doing things like, over at that development, there's a nice little pathway that goes underneath Route 44, and they're connecting into that. They're offering amenities in there. They've guaranteed that 50% is guaranteed for this income level, another 30% is at this level, and maybe there might be 20% that's market rates. Well, you're really looking at, 70 to 80% of it is below market rate for those apartments, and they're very, very nice. if you want to see something that's already up, I would suggest Worthington Mills over in Winds Locks. But that's the type of a company that you need to bring in to do this.
One final question. What role did the town of Avon play to make that happen?
It was huge. We had a town planner, which, George is a town planner, and we worked really tight with the town planner and town staff to put it all together. It was I can't say enough, having a great town planner, I can't say enough about it because that makes all the difference in the world. Okay. Yep.
In a project like that, can you talk about how the financing comes together? Who's involved? Like, who's managing all the financiers? So you talked about the government, grants, private investors. Can you talk about who pulls those folks together?
Beacon pulls that all together. That's why I'm saying I'm no expert, but Beacon is. So they have a staff person that can go and pull all of that together. They know where to look, where to find it. There's buckets of money hidden everywhere. You just and they know where to go find it. Thank you. Yeah.
I have a simple question, I promise.
Okay.
I like to read the town policies because I like to keep up with everything, but I've noticed since the pandemic started that a lot of policies don't seem to be updated. Are the zoning laws current online? Would you happen to know that?
George?
They are.
They are? Okay, yeah, because I just wanted to read them. Thank you.
On the map, yes.
Do you have any areas in mind where you think a development like the one in Avon, it's called Century 20, or?
Cheryl, you're asking for my secrets now.
Yes, I am. Go straight for it.
So I told George that I said when we go out on our tour on the 20th of May with George and Maria, I'm going to pull up somewhere, I'm going to point to a building and say, here is an opportunity to do the entire building as housing that's attainable, sustainable, what have you. And I can't say it publicly because I'll get shot. But publicly, they're going to know, those two will know about it. So the answer is yes, we're looking at something. And in my will, we do
You don't
want
have to tell me anything specific, but I just thought, while we have the map of
No, no, no.
Simsbury
If I
up
point
there.
to the area, you'll figure it out.
Okay.
Just say it. Let's say it's in this area here. Okay.
I have a question about affordable housing as far as purchasing housing. Does that ever figure into anything here? And I just want to add to where I'm coming from on this. I grew up in a suburb of Boston where they did this. They put in a condo development, and people could buy, a percentage of the housing had to be affordable. People could buy it. But then after 10 years or something, they could sell it at market rates. Then it stopped being affordable. So I'm just wondering about if there's anything like that you know about, and if there's any way to keep it on the market at affordability.
Yeah, there is. Thank you. That's a great question because in Avon, that was one of the issues that came up there. It's a rental product in Avon, but they guaranteed at least 50 years of it maintaining the affordability. Pardon me? That's a rental product, right? So on a sale product in Massachusetts, 40B, and it depends upon the community that approves it. And that's a negotiation with the developer. But I believe that 10 years is too short of a horizon for someone to own a piece of property. They should be at least 20, maybe 30, and make sure that we have that affordability still into the future. I haven't seen it here. I have not seen that here yet. We do have a workforce housing overlay zone. That's happening, but you need administrative people to overlook that, and that's something that I'm sure George and Laura will be looking into in the near future. Yes.
I know in Harrington, they have some affordable condos that are, they're income restricted, and they've stayed that way, and it's really great because they're like maybe 230,000 now. So if you're searching for a house, they'll jump out at you, and then you'll see it's income.
Yeah.
And I think it's good to build equity for people and to give them a chance for ownership. So
It stays on the market, but they sell it, it still stays in the affordable.
yes,
Right.
it's income limits, and the town regulates the income limits. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that I saw occurring during the pandemic, is that houses that were, or condos that were that 200,000 or lower, we had a defeating of the purpose of the price point because they were selling for above appraised value, and the only people that could afford it are the ones that are coming and paying cash. So we created a problem in that we have somebody coming in and saying, oh, you're asking 160, I'll pay you 190, and I don't care about the appraisal, I'm paying cash. And meanwhile, 27 other people that were trying to use the banking system to buy that affordable unit couldn't. The second thing about condominiums or HOAs are the monthly fees that are being charged. And that, if you're paying $200 a month for a condo fee or an HOA fee, that's like coming right off the mortgage. There has to be a better way. I'm in favor of the small acreage, the 6 individual single-family homes, and everybody owns their own little house and their own little square of grass right around them, and do something like that. I really would love to see that product come into this community. I'd really love to see that.
But I think when people pay cash, a lot of that is investment companies, because investment companies want people to rent because they can continue to control the property. And this is happening across like Florida, Texas, specific states, New York, California.
Yep.
And that's the new revenue for in high investors.
Yep.
So I don't know if that's happening in Simsbury, but I heard it was, where investment companies are buying rentals so that the American dream is gone. People can't buy homes or condos because renting, eventually they're going to make more money.
Yeah. I mean,
So-
to me, one of the great travesties is
When
that,
when you say cash, I'm thinking, is that an investment company? Because the people buying a home cash, you do find it, but not a lot.
during the pandemic, it was prevalent. There was a lot of people coming in from out of state, and yeah, so that's where that, and I don't like the philosophically, I think it's you have the. Yeah.
That's when the investment companies became savvy and said rent, because that's where the real money is.
Yeah, but some of these places are like a teacher's pension fund, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, you're a bunch of teachers and you need a place to live, and your pension fund is turning into lease only and not home ownership. So, yep.
Isn't it true, though, that the condo fees that are adding to the monthly cost really are going to things like repairs, replacement of the property that a homeowner would have to be setting aside in savings? So the roofing, the decks, the windows are being paid for incrementally so that there's sort of a forced savings when the repairs need to be made.
That's on the exterior, but also you have your lawn maintenance, you have your snow removal, you have your repairs. If you have a sewer pump in the condominium association and the pump goes, they have to have special funds set aside for that. So I think there's a bit of a boondoggle. In the early years, people go, oh yeah, I'm in this thing, it's only $200 a month, and then it creeps with the pricing, and all of a sudden, you're 5, 7, 8 years down, and something comes up that was unexpected, and let's have we have to go collect extra money from everyone. Understood, but in the condo association, you're having, if you're talking about the affordable aspect of it, it gets expensive. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But in my opinion, I've done numbers. I do numbers. Like if I see a condo association, you have 2 employees, okay?
Yep.
And you look to see how much they're spending per month to maintain the property.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the fees do not match the cost of maintaining and their fees, their salaries. And they justify raising it for other reasons. And I think sometimes when you look at the numbers, you have to look at the numbers.
Right.
How many employees? How much does it cost? Some of the fees do not make sense to me.
Right. Yeah. I agree. Yeah. No, but yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Any other questions or for now? Okay, thank you.
I think it's it.
All right, so my name's Ed Lamontagne. I'm going to ask you to bear with me. This afternoon, I decided I was going to mow my grass. So unfortunately, I have allergies, of which grass is one. My mama, God rest her soul, used to say, son, I love you, but sometimes you ain't all that smart. So just to prove her point, you never, ever put your swimming pool up in July in bear season country. All right, so my responsibility tonight is to describe the low income, or what we call limited income, properties in the town of Simsbury. So currently, there's 5 properties in Simsbury designated for limited or low-income individuals. The first of these is the Simsbury Housing Authority, and Christine Winters is the executive director of the Housing Authority, so she's going to keep me honest here. It's located at 1600 Hot Meadow Street, right across from Necker's Toy Store. The Housing Authority was created pursuant to Section 1840 of the Connecticut General Statutes to provide low-income public housing for qualified individuals, and this was done in the late 60s. So I just wanted to mention, everybody sees, and when you see Simsbury Housing Authority, that we are not actually a department of the town of Simsbury. We work closely with the town, but we're a separate entity, not-for-profit entity. The first is 2 properties. The first is the Dr. Owen L. Murphy Apartments. They were constructed in 2 phases. Phase 1 was in 1971, and it consists of 40 units. Phase 2 was in 1973 and consists of 30 units. There are 21 one-bedrooms and 49 studios. Qualify, you have to be 62 or older, or 18 and over on Social Security disability. Individuals need to have an income of, it's less than $1,500 to qualify, so they must have at least $1,500 to qualify for residency. Residents receive a $55 utility allowance for efficiency apartments and $60 for 1 bedroom. The Housing Authority uses 80% of income limits currently, and the income limits are set by Department of Housing and Urban Development. So currently, in 2022, that income limit is $62,600 for a single individual, $71,550 for 2 individuals. Yes.
Is everything on there annual?
It is. So currently, you can't make more in income than what I just mentioned in those above amounts. And the residents have to be recertified on an annual basis, meaning that they have to submit their income to the office so that they can be recertified, because sometimes their income changes. So if their income may change, it might go up, which means the rents go up. If it goes down, the rents are going to go down. The Virginia County residence is a 2-story building at the back of the property. That was built in 1989 and consists of 40 studio apartments. There's also a congregate housing aspect of the Virginia County residence. The congregate housing provides 24-hour security, housekeeping, 1 meal a day, social programs. There's also an assisted living component that is an additional cost to the residents if they need it. Not all the residents there need assisted living. For those that do, their cost is based upon the level of care that they receive. And that currently is provided by Masonic. For VCR, there is no qualifying income. Again, the Housing Authority utilizes 80% of the income limits. Again, 62.6 for single. We really don't have, that's primarily for single individuals, so we don't have, I keep saying we. I'm sorry, Christine. I'm so used to being there. So the Housing Authority does not, we really don't have two individuals residing at Virginia Conley. The rates are based on income and medical expenses. So again, they're recertified every year. If somebody has, during the course of the year, a high number of medical expenses, then those are deducted in the process of determining what the rent is. So if they have a lot of medical expenses, their rents will in fact be lower. If they don't have that many medical expenses, Christine will look at the income and base the rent on that. Eno Farms. Eno Farms is located at 1602 Hot Meadow, just north of the Simsbury Housing Authority, across from the new Tractor Supply. That property consists of 51, 2, or 3-bedroom apartments. I want to mention that the Simsbury Housing Authority is self-managed, and of all the properties I'm going to talk about, that's the only one that is self-managed. The property on Eno Farms consists of 51, 2, or 3-bedroom apartments. That property was put in Amos Eno, we're all familiar with the name, developed a trust. And in that trust was to support the town's poor. So the ground lease currently is held by the town of Simsbury. That property is managed by KRC, which is a subsidiary of Simon Conover. That property receives funding in part through the low-income housing tax credit program. So therefore, a certain number of the units are set aside for low-income households. There has been some conversations over the past few years that theoretically all of those apartments should be for low-income individuals because that was what Amos Eno had determined what it should be. Unfortunately, some of those are actually market rate houses. The households must earn either less than 50% or 60% of the area median income to qualify for the units. You're going to hear me talk about a lot of percentages, and each property utilizes a different percentage to determine what the rents are. The rents in these units at Eno Farms are capped at a maximum of 30% of the set-aside area median income. That is adjusted for the unit side. Remember I said there's 1 bedroom and 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms. So it's adjusted based upon the units. So as I mentioned, some of the rental units aren't subject to LIHTC and therefore have higher rents and no household income requirements. Third property is Ojakian Commons. That's at 100 Castor Bridge Crossing, which is in Dorset Crossing. Those apartments are not the ones on the left-hand side. Those are market rate. Ojakian Commons is in the back of the property, rear of the property. I think it's 3 stories. That was built in 2015. It was designed and developed in partnership with the Connecticut chapter of the MS Society. Funding for that program was through the low-income housing tax credit, same thing as Eno Farms. They have 48 apartments, 1 or 2 bedroom. 40 of those apartments are for individuals with MS. 7 apartments are for individuals with developmental disabilities receiving services through FAVAR. And 1 of those apartments is for FAVAR staff to provide supports to those individuals from FAVAR. So at Ojekian, residents pay for hot water and electric. For qualified residents, 40 apartments have built-in rental assistance. Qualified residents pay 30% of their income for housing expense. The state of Connecticut rental assistance program will pay for the rest. Now, at the Housing Authority, we also take advantage of the rental assistance program at both the Murphy Apartments and Virginia Conley. Unfortunately, at the Murphy Apartments, that rental assistance program is slowly going away. So I think we're down to a handful of residents that still receive the RAP. If one of those people who's receiving that rental assistance moves out, that money goes with them. We cannot replace that apartment on the rental assistance program. So the Favar residents are set up a little bit different. They have to have the ability to afford $986 a month rent based on, again, their income and other financial obligations. Now that program, there is no rental assistance available. And that is managed by Reagan Development Properties. Their management team manages Ojekian Commons. Willow Arms is located at 55 Elm Street in Terriffill. Mutual Housing is an organization located in Hartford. They're the management company. They acquired that development in July of 1997. At that point, it was in danger of being converted to market rate apartments. Mutual Housing came in and decided that they were going to keep it for low-income individuals. There's 81 apartments, 28 one-bedroom, 53 two-bedroom. Again, income qualifications for those apartments, some units pay 30% of the tenant's adjusted gross income. Now, this property is the only property in town that accepts Section 8 vouchers. It's called the Housing Choice Voucher Program. So that's the federal government's program for assisting very low-income families, elderly and disabled. This is through the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Their eligibility is based on total annual gross income and family size. So family's income may not exceed 50% of the median income. So as I mentioned, housing choice vouchers are administered locally by public housing agencies. As I mentioned, the PHAs receive federal funds from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development to administer the voucher program. So currently, Imagineers in Hartford manages Section 8 housing choice vouchers. And I put in there, and I think this is important, that there's a long waiting list. In fact, they have closed their waiting list currently. Simsbury Housing Authority has a waiting list for both their properties, which only goes to the point that more types of this housing is needed in the town of Simsbury. When I say people on the waiting list, for Section 8 could be in the hundreds of people that are waiting for vouchers in order to move into these apartments. The town of Simsbury has 6 units throughout town. All units are 3 bedrooms. They are also managed by Imagineers. Their income must qualify, again, to low income limits, and similar to the Housing Authority, they utilize the 80% category as outlined by HUD. I did leave you contact information, so you could check on the websites for all of these properties if you want to get into more detailed information. If you go onto HUD, and you could certainly look at what the percentages are. They have 3 distinct categories: low income, medium income, and very low income. There's the percentages that are used to determine what rents are, and that changes every year. So these are 2022 rates, and then at 2023, the federal government may decide whether they want to adjust those rates accordingly. I do have copies of the presentation up here. I did hand some out. I apologize I didn't get to everybody, but they are there for you to take. So thank you. Somebody else has to do the mic.
So that 4.3% they mentioned at the beginning, that includes all these properties. They were talking about 4.3% of properties are affordable in the town.
There's a difference between affordable housing and low-income housing.
Okay, and yours are low.
These are all low-income, I like to call them limited income housing, and it's just those 5 properties that are considered as such. Affordable housing is a totally different animal from that.
What percentage of Simsbury's affordable housing is rentals versus
A great majority is rental.
I have 2 questions. First for Ed, if you could just explain how limited the low-income housing market is for people with children.
So currently, Willow Arms and Eno Farms are the only 2 properties, and I think that the town of Simsbury owned properties are for children. Depending upon the family size, HUD has different, the amounts actually, I think, go up to almost 8 people and then the cost, the earned income gets higher and higher as you have more kids in the family.
So other than that, there are no limited income houses available for families?
Correct.
And are there developments that accept families in towns around us?
I don't know, Cheryl. Thank you. In
Whether or not there are
towns.
properties that for limited income families
So,
in towns
yeah.
around us?
So, I mean, the other towns have housing authorities. And,
not every town
Right.
has a housing authority, but every town has housing.
yeah.
So like Farmington has housing for families, Avon does not.
Granby has USDA housing.
So each town is different. So, but there's family housing in Windsor Locks.
Right.
Farmington.
And some of those are Section 8, which has, again, a really long waiting list.
But not, every town has housing, but not every town has a housing authority.
Right.
And the second part of my question is, when we say housing that's affordable, to back up on your question, just for clarity, we are not including in that number housing that is single-family housing, which the price point might fall in a so-called affordable range, but that is not counted in the 4.3% of available affordable housing stock, because it's not deed restricted by 830G.
Yeah, we typically refer to those as kind of normally occurring or naturally occurring in the marketplace.
But I just think a lot of people don't realize that that's because they will see a home for sale for perhaps $240,000 and think, well, that seems affordable, but that is not included in that total when we count those.
Do you have a sense of the difference in price of those rentals that are already deemed limited income rentals and other rental properties in town that you might deem market rate, but that are also available, like the fish properties that are throughout town or independently owned rental properties?
So I could only speak of the low-income apartments, and those, as Christine will tell you, have a variety of rents. We have individuals at VCR that pay 0 rent. And we have, the maximum is, what, $1,250? $1,344. So it's all dependent upon the individual's income and any, like I was mentioning, any medical expenses that could be deducted from that. All of these properties have to be recertified every year because the residents may work. They could certainly work. If they go out to work, then that's added income. So that gets figured into the calculations to determine what the rents are going to be. So for example, Christine, well, not anymore, but she used to, every January has to recertify 110 residents. And they have to submit bank statements and proof of income, medical expenses, and that is true for each of these properties. So, yes, so the rates the rents could vary considerably depending upon the income of the individuals.
But so there may be other properties in town that are renting for $1,340 or $1,100 or $1,200 that are not included in the limited income
Correct,
calculation.
correct. Because for them, it might be market rate for that particular property.
I just wanted to see if there was a sense of what the difference was between limited income and market
Sure.
rate costs.
Sure.
For, you know, for real
Right.
My name is Holly Bem. I'm with the Planning Commission, and I actually wanted to respond to the last two comments that were made. To Cheryl Cook's comment about that there are homes that fall under what is called affordability. When we worked on the affordable housing plan, when you look at 830G and it specifies what is affordable, meaning 30% of an income level, by the guidelines of 830G, more than one quarter, about 26% of all homes in Simsbury that had sold the previous year were in that affordability range. They were not called affordable housing because they weren't deed restricted, which when you think about building intergenerational wealth, is kind of not good if you're low income. But to Rich's point, there's a lot of words here at play. And just so you know, 830G is not for poor people. It's for people making $80,000, $90,000 a year. Whereas the Simsbury Housing Authority, now they're dealing with people who, and I've had a friend who was in just destitute situation, and thank God your off properties exist for that, and we need more of that. To your point, the person who talked about rentals, I am proud that our town does have commercial rental properties where, and quite a number of them, and when I say quite a number, actually dozens, not hundreds, but these are on the market that are natural market pricing, where meeting the affordability guidelines of 30%, we've got two-bedroom properties that two roommates making minimum wage could afford under the affordability guidelines here in town. And some condominiums also, that, again, minimum wage people can afford. We don't have a lot, but it's something to grow and to expand on. Yeah, we just finished it. It's more of a wish list.
It's on the planning page, planning department page.
Do you know how many 3-bedrooms you have in town just regular? Or do you have any idea? That's the other thing, where towns are lacking. When people do have Section 8 and they can go to other towns, but then they can't find a 3-bedroom.
I'm sorry, did you get an answer for your question, ma'am?
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other questions? All right, well, thank you so much for coming. Thank you to the panelists for sharing your knowledge and experience and expertise. It's really helpful to have these type of sessions so that we all can learn together. Hopefully, you'll be able to join us in our future events. We do have, as I stated earlier, we are planning 2 more educational sessions throughout the year. Hopefully in the fall, we'll have our last 2, And then later in the year, late fall, early winter, we hope to have our community session where we'll all come together to develop a shared vision of inclusive housing in Simsbury. So we'd love to see you again. Thank you so much. In your chairs, as I stated earlier, you have the surveys. Please feel free to fill them out and leave them on the table over there. We love to get your feedback. We love to stay in touch. So at your convenience, fill it out, leave it on the table. If you need another copy or a pen, let us know. Thank you again and have a good evening.